Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So, this past weekend for the LCS was LCS Week 4, and during day 2 of the broadcast, they decided to do some jungle power rankings, which is something I'm a big fan of. You know, we do a lot of power rankings on this channel, we do tier lists, all that kind of stuff, but the jungle power rankings that the LCS desk did were pretty controversial in a couple of ways. One, these lists are all so different, which again, isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's just everyone's opinion and analysis at the end of the day, and everyone can be a little bit different, but I didn't really think these power rankings were that good from any of the analysts, honestly, and I didn't think their actual analysis or explanations were that good either. But there was one main ranking that kind of drew the most attention on the broadcast, on Twitter, in a whole lot of discussions, and even in some of the post-game interviews. And in this video today, we're going to be going over my thoughts and opinions on all these different jungle power rankings lists, some of the drama kind of surrounding them. It's nothing too crazy, but it is pretty funny, and then hopefully we'll be getting your guys' thoughts and opinions as well. You know, if you want to leave your jungle power rankings in the comments, let me know who you think's been good in the first half, who you think's been bad, because we only have 2 weeks left of the LCS regular season, so you know, we can kind of start making some really solid conclusions about these teams and players. But before we get into that, I just wanted to mention real quick, if you're not already subscribed, take a quick second, smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it so much. It really helps you guys stay up to date on all my latest content, so you don't miss out on anything we got going on in the future, but it helps me out a ton as well. Obviously, you know, just growing, running those numbers up. Also, smashing the like button would be appreciated so much. It really helps me out the YouTube algorithm. With that being said, let's get right into this. The big thing here, the number one point of contention, is Markz, his list here on the left, where one of the main things I disagree with is he has Spica at 7. I think that is pretty disrespectful. But the main thing is Closer at 8 that people really got upset about on Twitter, on Reddit, on the broadcast even. People were really like, Mark, what the heck are you talking about? Like, everyone knows Closer's pretty solid, and 100 Thieves has been a really solid team so far. So is Closer really the 8th best jungler in the LCS? Like, Xerxes is better than him, Jose Dioto's better than him? Like, I mean, come on. People were really just wondering what Markz was thinking, what he was trying to say. So we'll run, you know, this part of the broadcast back. We'll take a look at what Markz actually has to say. Some of this spilled out onto Twitter, and then, you know, Closer got his little jabs back in at Markz that we'll take a look at a little bit later in this video as well. I'll be giving my thoughts and opinions as we go. But first, let's hear Mark out. Let's see what he has to say. We're going to see what everyone has to say about this section. This part was all about Closer.
Okay, now we're going to get to the one that y'all called out right at the top of the block here, Closer. And Mark, granted, you have him in 8, and you said you were prepped to defend this. You knew you'd have to. Go ahead, Let's hear the defense.
All right, Closer obviously is not an 8th place jungler in the league. Like I said, this is performance-based through spring split only. The lock-in tournament would have him way higher, but when you look at his actual stats, he's pretty close to the bottom of the barrel in a lot of the individual playmaking ones. He's the lowest in kills and assists at 15. Or second lowest, I think. I think Iconic might be the only one lower. But he doesn't get a lot of ganks done in the early game. His first blood percent's pretty low. His actual playmaking is not that high. He was leading the league in deaths as junglers as of yesterday. I think that might have changed, but he doesn't have the kills and assists to back it up. So, like, if you're really aggressive and making plays and you die a lot, I don't care. Svenskeren dies a lot, but he's often also getting a lot of kills and assists. Not the case with Closer right now either. And the one stat that he leads in is XP differential at 10. And you go, okay, well, he's got great pathing. And I agree with that. But you have to look at his mid laner. Demonte is the lowest XP differential at 10 in the league right now for mid laners. That is where most of that lead is actually coming from, is the mid waves that Closer collects to get priority to go move around the map with his mid laner. And so I think he's a really good player, but they have not made many plays on his own. I can't think of that many ganks that he turns. They try a lot of dives, but there's not that many ganks, and he has a lot of jungle control. He has a lot of objectives under his belt. But in terms of getting them leads, when I was talking about 100 Thieves, horrible early game PvP stats, part of that comes from Closer not being able to make kills happen for his team.
Primal, you got him as...
So, that was kind of what Mark, you know, has to say in terms of why he's ranking Closer that low. And to some extent, I get it. I do agree that Closer is a very solid jungler. During his time in North America, especially, I mean, even just thinking back to the lock-in tournament, he was popping off during the lock-in tournament. Him and 100 Thieves were both looking so good. Early on in the spring split, him and 100 Thieves were both looking so good. But he has cooled off the last couple of weeks, and so has 100 Thieves. You know, they were a team at... Were they in first, tied for first for a little while? Now they're slowly kind of starting to drop some games. They're looking uglier and uglier. Even some of their wins have been a little bit shaky. I don't necessarily love how most of Mark's argument is coming from stats. Yes, he does talk about, you know, he doesn't really remember any big plays either. But I mean, if you watch the games, you know, it's hard to say that Closer is the 8th best jungler in the league to me. Again, I would not put Xerxes, Jose Diodo. I mean, there's even a couple of other guys that I would not maybe have above Closer. But I get what Mark's saying, that Closer is not an 8th place jungler usually, typically, but based off of the, 12 games so far that we've seen in the LCS, that he has not had his best split personally. He could play a lot better, and they really do need him to step up, and he's looking for and expecting him to step up. So I think part of this is maybe a little bit unfair to Closer, that the expectations are so high that we do expect him to be better. We expected 100 Thieves to be better. And again, like he's saying that Demonte has a low XP share, so that helps out Closer. He's getting some of that XP and stuff, and that's good. And part of that he's using to knock against Closer, but I would kind of disagree there, because I think that's just 100 Thieves playstyle. They know that Demonte is not going to be one of their stronger carries and stuff, so it makes more sense to maybe funnel some XP onto some of the other members. And if Closer gets some of that, that's just for the betterment of the team. That's not necessarily, I don't think should be used as a knock against Closer. But again, I do understand what he's saying there. I like that he has at least some reasoning and stuff behind it, even if it is reasoning that we disagree with, and I know I disagree with, and a lot of other people did disagree with it as well. But on the other side, I do think there are some people that do overrate Closer a little bit. I know the other day we were kind of talking about Jankos, and we were talking about whether Jankos would be a good fit on, you know, Liquid or Cloud9 or 100 Thieves or anything like that. And I mean, there's literally some people that are saying they wouldn't replace Closer with Jankos because Closer is such a beast. And yes, Closer can be good. He has been good at times, but if you've watched 100 Thieves recently, their whole team has just not looked that great. I think Someday has been very, very consistent, and I think FBI has been maybe the best AD carry in the league, maybe second best. And the fact that they have 2 members of their team that are that strong, top and AD carry, you know, great sides of the map, and Closer still hasn't been able to look like great or dominant, that is definitely making me a little bit questionable about just how good Closer is, because again, jungle is a very, very team-oriented role. It's a very team-oriented position. If you are a jungler on a bad team, it can be very, very difficult to stand out. And if you're a jungler on a good team with good winning lanes and strong lanes, it can be pretty easy to stand out. You know, even if you're not so good, you can maybe shine a little bit. Now, Demonte has been one of the weaker mid laners, especially the past couple of weeks, and mid-jung synergy and playmaking is such a big part of jungling that I think that kind of works against him a little bit. So there's really so many different variables, and just asking you to rank power rank junglers. Jungle is honestly one of the hardest positions in the game to power rank, just because again, it is so team based, but there's also a million ways to play it. There's a million different paths. You can, you can be gank heavy, you can be objective focused, you can have the best clear, you can counter jungle, you can counter gank. Like, there's so much going on, and you are so team reliant, so team dependent. But also just a huge part of the early game, and not every team is focused towards early game. You know, there's teams like TSM and 100 Thieves that aren't necessarily even focused towards early game playmaking. So when you're trying to use, 15-minute stats for some of these junglers, it really doesn't tell the whole story. So again, I do think it's easy to kind of take shots at Markz's list and be like, oh, Closer's way too low, but I do agree Closer's too low. I would have him a little bit higher up, but I would not put him as high up as maybe some other people are saying. I think the 5 to 6 range, like maybe where High has him at 6, maybe even bumping him up to 5, I think would be a lot more fair. But I do think it is fair to be critical of Closer and 100 Thieves' level of play, especially recently. Again, he looked great in the lock-in tournament, but he has not looked that great since then. And again, 100 Thieves, they've had some bad losses, they've had some shaky wins, and I think overall just a lot of members of this team need to step up. And again, especially Closer, who's using an import slot, I think he's been worth it. He's been good, but he does need to step up and be, one of the best junglers in the LCS is really what this team needs. And he's done a good job of, being a playmaker, being pretty consistent, but you saw those early game stats. He has almost no KP in the early game, no kills in his set. He's just not doing much in terms of the early game. And that's something 100 Thieves is going to really need to start doing, not only just Closer, but as a team, if they want to be more successful in the second half of the spring split, into the spring playoffs, thinking ahead even to like Worlds or something. If you're being this passive of a team, you're going to get picked apart at the international level, and I think him and 100 Thieves do need to understand that. Now, fortunately for us, we did get a little bit of a response from Closer. This was his interview after 100 Thieves game on the second day of week 4 in the LCS, where Tigris, asked the hard-hitting questions, and not really, but they did ask about whether or not he saw the rankings from Markz and everything, and I did think it was pretty funny getting what he thinks about it.
Your thoughts on what it is playing against Dignitas in this regard when it
might
goes
be a little bit too far forward.
Kills on their
Twitch is so hard to
kills
navigate.
on their
early skirmishes, some of them going the way of
All right, here we go.
Dignitas, but what did 100 Thieves do here today to keep the game close?
It's just another 100 Thieves game, I guess. We started bad, and then we somehow managed to win the game because I think we got like kills on their side lanes, and
And that's an important point. Just like Closer's talking about there, in this game they did fall behind early. They are able to fall back, fight back in a lot of these games because, again, they do have very, very solid players. Closer is great. FBI is great. Someday is great. They have awesome late game carries. DeMonte enables a lot of what they have going on. But they do keep finding themselves down in the early game against a lot of these teams that are worse than them, and they really shouldn't be, finding themselves in early game deficits against. And again, some of that, if not a lot of that, has to fall on your jungler a little bit. He kind of needs to take responsibility for some of their early game mishaps and struggles. Now, yes, if your laners get, 2v2 kills or solo kills or something like that, there's only so much you can do, but your jungler should probably be setting up plays more often in the early game than Closer has been doing.
we ended up playing the team fights better. That's how we came back. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel good at all to win games like this. Like, I definitely want to be a clean team, have like clean games, but win is a win, and we end up winning this game as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's still good to get the W's over in that column here. And while it was a bit of a kind of crazy game there in the middle moments, I just want to get your thoughts on what it is playing against Dignitas in this regard. When it goes from something like that,
So far,
a little bit of
Trying to skip ahead a
not
little
sure
bit.
if that's going out to the set
I wasn't, so we ended up giving some kills. It was
at the jungle tier list
All
that
right, here
our
we go.
analysts were discussing during our LCS countdown. And I want to get your thoughts on that and where you think you currently stack up within the junglers in this league.
yeah, I saw it actually. I think some of them are pretty cringe, to be honest.
So I thought that was hilarious, at least them getting the quote out from him saying that Markz's tier list was pretty cringe. Obviously, he was talking about that. I mean, he could have even been talking about High's tier list as well, having him down at 6th. Maybe, I think Primal had him at 4th, which is probably something he's feeling a little bit better about. I don't think at this point he can be saying, telling himself that he's a top 2 or 3 jungler. Like, if you're saying that at this point, that would be pretty concerning to me because that would be being very, very complacent and just being a little bit delusional. But, 4th, 5th, 6th, probably pretty accurate representation. I think he should be self-critical, but obviously you want to have some confidence and stuff as well. But just funny that, he's, sending some shots at Markz saying that he thinks his power ranking is cringe. But let's see what he thinks about himself in terms of the jungle rankings and everything.
Like, it doesn't really matter what people think. Even if everyone thinks I'm the best or I'm the worst, I think I'm the best. And I'm gonna keep thinking that. I'm gonna work hard to be the best. So, yeah, I'll just keep working hard, and I guess just answer the doubters, I guess. And yeah, play better.
So I did think that was a great answer. He's saying whether everyone thinks I'm the best or the worst, it doesn't matter, which is a great mindset to have. Obviously, we know how toxic Reddit and Twitter and stuff like that can be, and even stuff that the analyst desk is saying. They only know so much. They only know half the story. And again, that's just another person's opinion. Markz is no different than you or I in terms of his opinions or anything that's going on. Just because they're analysts or whatever, they're literally just people watching games, giving opinions, just like anybody else. So I don't think they need to be put on some kind of pedestal or anything like that. But, he said no matter what, he's going to think he's the best, but he does want to do better. He does want to play better. So it sounds like he's in a good mindset. He is in the right place, and I think that'll give him a chance to hopefully rebound and continue to just get better and develop over the course of the year. Because 100 Thieves, they obviously have promise, they obviously have talent, but they certainly have things they need to work on. They certainly have things they need to improve on over the course of the year. Markz did go to Twitter to kind of clarify some stuff. He said, I knew that Closer ranking was going to be contentious if you only see the graphic and miss the actual combo. He said Closer was way better than 8th, no lock-in where he smurfed. Again, not having lock-in in here does kind of suck for Closer because he did play really, really well there. Really low playmaking early, high deaths, XP inflated. And again, yes, if you're not making a lot of plays early and you're dying a lot and you are part of a team that is struggling in the early game and it seems like you are a lot to blame for that, yeah, it is tough to move him up too high on the tier list. But then again, I think some of those other junglers like Jose Diodo, Zergze, like, are they better? Are they doing more? Like, I don't know. I would disagree, but I get what he's saying. And then here, you know, he says, no worry, I was about to DM you. Talking to Acadian, who was standing up for closer, he said he would actually pick closer 3rd to 4th easy if he was just like picking a jungler for his team. So then that still kind of makes me wonder, like, you know, if you would pick him 3rd or 4th, why would you have him 8th? I get you're just kind of analyzing how his performance so far, but I mean, also if you're doing a power ranking, it should be you ranking the junglers probably in the order of their power or strength that, you know, you would take them. That's just what I think. That's my opinion. But again, you know, these lists are so subjective. The criteria is always super different. It can kind of be whatever you want, and that's kind of what makes it cool and fun. And part of the LCS, I'm sure they want you to have a little bit of contentious rankings as well, because if everyone disagrees with your list, there's no interaction, there's no engagement, there's no discussion. But when you have a list that's a little bit on the edge, that gets tweets, that gets posts, that gets, you know, interaction and engagement from the fans. And I think they do play into that a little bit to some extent, because again, closer at 8, speak at 7, like, I would not assume that is all, you know, like legit and not at least a little bit for show. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below. What do you think your jungle power rankings would look like right about now? Do you think Markz had closer too low? Would you have had him higher? Where would you have put him? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on anything we talked about in today's video. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.